Welcome to Travelgram. From me, Peter Bates, here in New York. It's good to be with you again. To call my guest today a hospitality veteran is an understatement. I first met him in Bali about 25 years ago. He spent 14 years with Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, and he ended up as the Senior Vice President, Hotel Operations in Asia Pacific. From there, he went to the Americas and he joined Starwood Capital Group as the President of Global Hotel Operations. In his 5 years at Starwood, he developed the successful Baccarat Hotel and One Hotel brands. I was told recently that he's clearly fluent in the language of luxury. But I'm told he's also a linguist as well. He speaks English, French, Spanish, Italian, and Bahasa Indonesian. So let me introduce you to Neil Jacobs, the Chief Executive Officer of Six Senses Hotels and Resorts. In 2012, Neil made a pivot of move. He joined forces with Pegasus Capital Advisors and purchased Six Senses Resorts and Spas. Then a relatively small company, mostly with beachfront resorts in Southeast Asia. But along since its founding in 1995, the Six Senses mission had been to promote personal well-being and the health of our planet. And Neil's goal was to fortify that vision while expanding and diversifying locations. And he's done just that. In 2023, there'll be 18 resorts within the brand. And in February 2019, Six Senses Hotels and Resorts was acquired by IHG. And more to come about that in a moment. So this is a company clearly positioned to ride out this storm we're all experiencing at the moment. So Neil Jacobs, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. I guess you're in Singapore today.
I am, Peter. I'm very much in Singapore, and thank you for such a wow introduction. I think I need you on my side a little more. That was great and very sweet.
Thanks. Thanks. Well, I outlined a little bit of your career there. And as you say, you're now the CEO of Six Senses, but what's the career path? How did this all come about? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in the UK. I, no background, no family background of hospitality, but as you pointed out, had studied language and trying to figure out what to do with the languages. So I thought go into the hotel business, that would be fun, at least take me around the world. So that's what I did. I did hotel school in the UK and really started traveling right from the beginning. Worked in Portugal. My first job was in Madeira with Holiday Inn. I then, like many out of the UK, joined Trust House Forte back at the time and spent several years in Sardinia at Forte Village. And soon after moved with them, which gave me my first taste of certainly of South Asia, and moved to Sri Lanka and was kind of the number 2 at what was then the Pegasus Reef Hotel, and just kept moving. In the Seychelles, my first GM's job was in the Seychelles. I moved to Barbados in the Caribbean and opened a place called Glitter Bay on the west coast of Sardinia. To South America, I was in Venezuela with Sheraton for a while, and then moved to the States in the early 80s. And that was a big switch for me, because then I kind of moved out of ops and went into development, and we had our own. A few of us had a small development company, and that was where I met Four Seasons, because we were in fact the developer of Four Seasons in Walalai on the big island of Hawaii, the original developers of Punta Mita and Scottsdale, and that was how the relationship built with Four Seasons. And at some point they said, why don't you come and work for us, which was a great thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought, it was the recession in the US in the early 90s, and I went out to Bali, and that's where we met, in fact.
That's right.
And the
That's
rest you outlined. So
That's
it's been
fantastic.
a great
Fantastic.
career.
What a great career. But development is pretty important in everything you're doing now as well, isn't it? I mean, that was a good move to do something in development.
Yeah. No, very much so. I mean, I enjoy that part of the business. I very much the creation aspect. I love the site visits and just kind of being involved in the cultures and the different people and crazy developers all over the world. And I mean, that's a great part, and certainly been a big piece of my role at Six Senses.
Fantastic. So you've taken Six Senses from a relatively small company to be the Travel and Leisure Brand of the Year for 3 consecutive years. You sold the company to IHG for $300 million. How did that story all come about? I mean, you got to Six Senses. What happened then?
Well, we had very clear goals right at the beginning, and it was very much about taking the company from being a resort group, as you said, in Southeast Asia, and creating a global platform. It was about doing some urban executions of the brand in cities that really had a leisure component to their market mix. Not really about doing pure business hotels, but places like New York, London, Rome, etc. We wanted to change the aesthetic a little bit and bring it into the next century. We were very much back then kind of a Robinson Crusoe type of product, and we felt that the market had shifted, the customer desire had shifted, so we kind of reimagined the aesthetic a bit while keeping true to the values. But the really big thing was to drive an agenda of both wellness and sustainability that had always been part of the DNA. Sustainability, perhaps more than wellness in the old days, but to really take those two pillars and drive them really, really hard, because we see that as the future. We saw it as the future. We saw it as the differentiator, and it was the right thing to do. So that's kind of the story, if you like, and how we got there. So we went out and we did it, and in 7 or 8 years, we accomplished all those goals. Aside from the 18 hotels that are currently operating, we have a pipeline of probably close to 40 today. And it's not to say they're all going to get done, but we are touching 40 different projects today, which is huge. IHG had approached us within about a year of buying the company in 2012. And I remember meeting with Keith Barr and Paul Edgecliffe Johnson, the CFO, right at the beginning. And we said, well, we're very flattered, but we've been at this a year and we're really not for sale, and we have plenty to do. And if we were to transact, it probably would not be to a very large strategic hotel company.
Right.
Credit to my new owners is that they hung in there, and every year they'd reach out, and we had a conversation. It was always, no, we're not ready. And then in 2018, the end of 18, the conversation started again, and we still said that we weren't really ready. And they said, well, come on, you must be. It's coming up to 7 years or so, and we were private equity, so there is an end date with PE, as you know. And they said, how much? And I said, well, probably about 300, something like that. And that's how it started. It was a very, very fast due diligence. we started the conversation in October, and we closed the deal in February of 19, as you pointed out. And it's been fantastic. Yeah. I mean, they have done and behaved and functioned exactly the way they said they would. Very respectful of the leadership of the group. The culture is quite unusual for a company of that size. So that was probably our biggest surprise and joy with respect to the transaction. We don't really understand what the bigger IHG do. That's not our world, and they don't really understand so well what we do. And so it's a great marriage, and I think we're going to do some terrific things together.
And Keith Barr made it very clear, didn't he, that he wanted you to keep running the ship and keep running as it was.
Yeah,
in the great way possible.
He did, and we have integrated somewhat, and that is proving positive. It's early days. We completed a technology integration in the last couple of months. We are going live on loyalty first week of February. We're involved in part of this bigger system fund that they have, which is going to be useful to us, certainly from a marketing and promotion perspective. And there's obviously huge resource there, particularly as it relates to the back office aspect of our business that doesn't really touch the guest in a meaningful way. So there's much of that infrastructure that really will make us a stronger and more efficient company, and allow us to do things that we could never do at the scale that we had. So there's plenty of good there, and that's exciting.
The whole technology aspect of a major company like that being able to help you is just fantastic.
Yeah, no, it really is. Although I have to say, and we were very proud of it in as much as we'd been spending, virtually 2 years on developing a mobile app.
Yeah.
2 years, a long time to spend on a mobile app, which just showed how efficient we were not. But we did spend that time, and IHG took a look at it right at the beginning, and they said, "This is great. This is even better than ours. We want to use some of what you've got going here." So that was encouraging, and we launched that a couple of months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. So
I've got it on here. I've got it. So let's just go back to wellness and sustainability, because that's so important as key pillars, as you said, of the brand. What do they mean to you today? What do they really mean now?
Well, what they mean today, as opposed to what they meant pre-COVID, or
absolutely. As we're now going to go forward.
Yeah. I mean, to us, obviously, it's a huge part of who we are, so it's extremely relevant even pre-COVID. But as we emerge from the pandemic, I mean, the mindset of our guests, customers, is so different to what it was before. I do not believe that we're going to go back to living our lives the way we did. It's just not conceivable to me. So to us, wellness is about providing a platform. So firstly, that, we always talk about having our guests leave in a better place than when they arrive. We're not preachy about it. I think that's important. Nor are we a destination spa where we only want people who are coming on very rigid programs. So it's about choice, and from a guest perspective. But we have so much content, and the offers out there, whether it's around sleep or nutrition or Ayurveda or Chinese medicine. Recently, we're into energy medicine. I mean, programmatically, we have a huge amount. And the way we look at it is we want our guests to do as much or as little as they want, and
Right.
that needs to be relevant to them. We want them to enjoy themselves. We encourage, but it's all there. And we spend a huge amount of time creating content. We have a group that we call our wellness innovation team that really are the group that led by my partner Anna Bjurstam that sit around and say, okay, this is important now. This is what we need to be focusing on. And the trends in wellness, the latest ones were just released yesterday by the Global Wellness Institute, are just kind of consolidating the fact that everybody is more interested in health and wellness today than they were pre-COVID. And even pre-COVID, the train had left the station, and it drives most all of our decisions, as does sustainability. Hotel companies have not historically been very good in embracing sustainable agendas. Everyone would have a little green team and would do a bit here or there, but nobody really took it seriously. And I have to say, long before I was involved with Six Senses, it's always been a mainstay of the brand right from the beginning. And we collect data. We're into analytics. Around what we're doing with natural resource. We take 0.5% of our income, of our total revenue is spent on sustainable practice. It goes into a fund at each hotel, and there's a lot of thought goes into how that money is spent. We look at it from three perspectives. You have the built environment, you have the operating environment, and then we have the outreach, the community outreach. And I think part of the difference in a post-COVID world is the third part is that perhaps we're doing a bit more community outreach than we were doing before. I mean, a lot of people are hurting badly, as a result of this. So how we can,
some of the locations where you
yeah, that's true. And how we can support is very, very important. So I think just to finish this piece up, what would describe it well is that as a hotel group, each hotel has a sustainability manager, who crosses every single department. That's kind of unheard of in our business, that commitment is there. Each hotel has a wellness director that sometimes is also the spa director, but sometimes is not. And again, that wellness director crosses every department. It's not just that they're in the spa. And we have a huge initiative around employee wellness, or hosts, we call them hosts. The program's called Mission Wellness. So it's not just about the guest, it's about people who are involved in Six Senses, who work at Six Senses, and how we can also improve their lives through input and programming for all the employees. So just a huge part of our DNA.
And then you have at the center, as you said, Anna, who looks after the wellness side, and you have somebody else who's looking after the sustainability side, right? So that they're single focus in those two areas. Is that right?
Yeah, and both are part of leadership, and every decision that is made at the company level has sustainability and wellness weigh in, because it's such an integral part of what we do. Then it's not all that we do. We're proud of kind of the activities and that go on at the hotels and resorts what we do there. Our food and beverage is very is innovative, but it's also driven by wellness as well. I mean, we have a program called Eat with Six Senses, which is all about nutritional food, healthful food without losing flavor or texture or anything. And we spend a lot of time putting together Eat with Six Senses and having a dedicated chef at corporate level that just focuses on the Eat with Six Senses programming and moves around the properties to ensure that everyone's on message.
Yeah. It sounds that you gently integrate into everything that you're doing. It's gently there.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. So gently and sometimes less gently, but I mean, absolutely so. But it's interesting. I mean, you talked earlier about the in my intro, the Travel and Leisure Awards. What was fascinating to me about that, apart from obviously being delighted that we won for 3 consecutive years, but was that when it was written about, and each winner of those awards, got a few paragraphs online, or, the focus was of the narrative, of the written narrative there, was just wellness and sustainability. And so aside from it being the right thing to do, it's also for us commercially the right thing to do. And one is not more important than the other, actually, because they work together, and it defines who we are, but more importantly, it differentiates us from our really, really good competitors out there. Because no one is quite doing what we're doing in those areas.
Right. You talked a little bit about the app, but you have a pretty strong digital philosophy, don't you? I mean, you've done a lot of work, particularly during COVID, to put content out there, to engage with your clients, engage with travel advisors. Where did that all come from? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, much driven by Anna and then our marketing team. I mean, we took a view that when COVID was starting, that it really wasn't appropriate to be, promoting, beautiful beaches in the Seychelles or some of the other lovely properties that we have, that it needed a different texture, and we needed to be supporting our customers and others in a different kind of way. So we figured the best way to do that was to try and put out some of our wellness programming digitally. Well, we'd never really done that before, and I have to say we're not overly experienced, but we also felt that we haven't got time to learn it. So let's just jump in, and we'll see where it landed. So that's what we did. It was very raw. It was definitely not produced. We had a bunch of accidents. We were Zoom bombed by a porn site somewhere. I mean, we had plenty of learning moments through
authentic
through the process. Yeah, but in some ways that was also part of the authenticity around it, because it really did come from the heart. And when you're in our head of yoga's living room in South Mumbai, and it's very real. Right? It was very, very real, and I think people found that refreshing
and probably comforting.
Yeah, I think so. So we just kept going. I mean, there was a point where we're not doing quite as much with the frequency now, but there was a point where we were out every day with something, and it started with wellness and pure wellness, and then moved into other areas. We called it At Home with Six Senses, That then moved into, we started a second thing called Friends of Six Senses, which had Anna pretty much doing her own talk show. And just inviting extraordinary people on that were doing fabulous things, not necessarily industry people or hotel industry people, but just interesting folks who were doing some good in the world. So that continues. So we took a bit of a breather, but we're about to jump back in and really refine and define a bit more. We will be doing some webcasts. We have a bigger plan that will be rolled out this year.
So it's here to stay now, is it?
Yeah, definitely here to stay. Absolutely, for sure.
So let's move to development. I understand that you're going to open 4 properties this year, probably, hopefully in Brazil, I understand, Ibiza, Israel, and tell us about those 3 first. Tell us about those. What?
Well, in Brazil, we took over a tiny little hotel in the hills about 2 hours north of Sao Paulo. Almost a little bit of country escape for the Paulistas. And it's been a successful hotel. It's called Botanique. It only had 17 rooms, but it was on a piece of land that the owners had several thousand acres. So we took a look at it. They were running it themselves. We were very, very aligned in terms of our values. We'd said it was too small to really carry, an international brand because for all the reasons. And their view was, well, we should make it bigger. We've got the land. So currently we're looking at adding another 17 rooms and also some residential for sale, about 35 units of resi. So certainly by the middle of the year, we'll be up at around, around 60 or so keys. And we will rebrand officially next month, middle of February. Our GM is already there, and we're moving. So it's our first entry into South America. It's quite a well-known little hotel domestically. We think we can bring some international business there, or people who are, as when travel returns. So very, very excited about that.
Obviously, every time you do something like that, it has an effect on the rest of the brand because more people learn.
It does. And Brazil, I don't have my data in front of me, but Brazilian business to our system is robust, particularly out of Brazil into Asia. The Brazilians love Thailand, Vietnam, Bali, and so on. So we're quite well known on the ground in Brazil. So that's been very helpful, and I think it certainly will help drive business quickly.
Okay.
Ibiza, I've been working on for 2.5 years or so. We're a few months away from opening. It's the north of the island. It's where a lot of residential, close to where we are, a lot of the big villas, and it's where all the crazy, hippie, wonderful healers hang out in Ibiza, that stay away from Party Central and the South Coast. So it's a different kind of vibe in our hotel to what you find in other parts of the island. That said, Ibiza is fun and people are there to enjoy themselves. So that won't be any different at Six Senses, but it's a great environment. There will be residential for sale as well. It's right on the water, rocky coastline where we are, but beautiful views, beautiful ocean, incredible spa and wellness. And as I say, there's such a tradition of healing in Ibiza that all of that will be brought in and practitioners will be brought in. We're going to start to jump in Ibiza perhaps into the festival business.
Really?
And we think that we're able Ibiza historically has somewhat of a short season, right? Unlike Mallorca or some of the other islands in the Balearics, you'd go to Ibiza in April and then it would be over, end of September.
Yeah.
Well, we think that we can stretch seasonality there. And part of that will be through wellness and doing retreats and festivals. And the goal is to really open the season. And we won't do that this year, but going forward to open early with a big festival of sorts, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's wellness driven.
Great.
And to close the season with a big festival too. So that's kind of a new business for us, and we're
good legs for publicity.
Yeah,
good legs for publicity and promotion.
I think so, and you can get, and the weather is still good. You can get there. There aren't quite as many direct flights that the season ends, but you can get there through Barcelona or other gateways into Spain. So it's going to be fun. I mean, we're always looking to do kind of new things that we haven't.
But what about Israel? Tell us about Israel.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited about Israel. It's Israeli owner who has been focused on this project for several years. It's in the Negev desert, south of the country, about 50 kilometers north of Eilat. This property has been carved into the desert. I mean, you have an unobstructed 360-degree view. We're in a beautiful valley. We have 2 or 3 major kibbutz very close to us. Again, the values of the company, particularly around sustainability here, just are so evident in everything. We do grow a lot of our own food in all properties, and here will be no exception. We also have a camel farm here. So we will breed camels, we will make camel milk, we will have camel cheese, we will have little wanders into the desert with the camels, but that's pretty cool as well. It's been ready to open since April of last year, but
wow,
we just took a view not to do that. And the owner didn't want to do it prematurely and be opening and closing, so we've just been making it better. But very excited, and a lot of demand from gateway cities all over the world.
How many rooms or keys?
About 60, all villas, all villas. It's interesting times in the Middle East, I think, particularly with the opening up of the Emirates into Israel, and I think our property there is going to play a role in some of that. In some ways, it could become a bit like the Camp David of Israel.
I love it. So continuing the eyes, we've been to Ibiza and Israel. Let's move to India, right?
Oh, how exciting is that? How exciting.
Because, that's going to come on stream this year as well, I think.
We're hopeful it will. That's what we're being told. In these days of COVID, anything can happen, right? But it's certainly we see the end. We see the end game. It's our owners have been restoring an extraordinary fort called Fort Bawara, 14th century. About 2.5 hours drive from Jaipur in Rajasthan, 30 minutes from the Tiger Reserve, Ranthambore, and so very well placed for both domestic travel, which, as everyone knows, is huge in India and exciting to do that, but also could very much be a part of an international traveler circuit or 2 or 3 stops around the country. there are a lot of good forts in
Yes,
India.
absolutely.
So,
Oh.
but this one is super special. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really great, and
But you're
we
going into a really competitive market, aren't you? Rajasthan, there's
yeah
some great hotels
yeah
in Rajasthan.
we are we are. But in some ways, I think that's quite good because the destination is so well known. There's a lot of people promoting it out there, and I'm confident that we've got one of the good ones here. I mean, it was split. The fort was split into various mini palaces, within the fort, and we've taken the what was the ladies' enclave or the ladies' palace within the fort, and that entire area has become the spa and wellness
Wow.
part of the fort. So a particularly large amount of real estate within the fort has been allocated to spa and wellness, which is wonderful. And we're strong in Ayurveda. We worked a lot over the years with Ayurveda. We have many practitioners, many Indian practitioners who are just so amazing, who either run our wellness in hotels or doing yoga with dedicated yoga practitioners. So we have a lot of experience in India. Anna actually did pre-Seychelles, created all the spa and wellness programming for Taj way back, and helped drove the creation of Jiva spas. So she particularly has a lot of experience in India. So, I don't want to say that we're going to become a hardcore Ayurvedic center. That's not the intent, because we're not the destination. We don't pretend to be Ananda or Vana or places like that is really single focus. So have a much broader approach to it. Yeah. But we will touch on it. We will have some Ayurveda, but we'll have a lot more as well. So very excited about it. I mean, we've had spas in India. We've never had a hotel.
Oh, really?
So this is our first hotel in the country.
And I understood you've been looking for a while, haven't you, in India?
We have. But you.
And would you add more now that you've got?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we needed to get the first one done, and the first one needs to be fabulous and set the benchmark. And I think once this is open and the market is seeing what's going on there, that will hopefully open other opportunities for us.
Fantastic. But you also mentioned a little bit earlier, you throw away that London, New York, Rome. So urban resorts are on the table as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if I would call them urban resorts. I mean, we will have a leisure component for sure, but they're very much on the table. We are open in Istanbul, the 3 cities that you mentioned. We have hotels being developed. We're Lisbon, we're under development there as well. So that side of the business is really happening. But and so very excited about it. But the piece that really resonates for me about what we're doing in the cities is our Six Senses Place, which is our club concept that will debut in New York when we open there, which is really a social club, but with a very, very strong base again of wellness. And we see that being a huge anchor to our urban properties that are really there. And obviously hotel guests will have access to the club, but the real focus is how those clubs behave with the local community, and how we can bring community into the environments of our hotels. And in some ways, wellness is perhaps even more important in an urban environment than it is in a resort. So, you go and spend 10 days or a week or 10 days in Thailand, you're on a program. What do you do when you get home to London or New York or Mumbai or wherever? So very much for us about connecting the dots with the resorts to allow people to continue what they were doing when they get home.
Fantastic. You said about the pipeline's about 40, I think, in the pipeline, and you've obviously got 18 open. Is there a number of Sixth Senses you could have around the world? I mean, is there an optimum number, or doesn't that exist?
I think it's a really good question, and I remember my time at Four Seasons. We were always asked, how many is too many? At what point can you not do it or do you lose what you had? And Izzy Sharp, was very clear about that, and I think I would echo what he would always say. Was it's not about how many, it's about one at a time, and it's about making sure that each property is accretive to the value set of the organization. That if you have the mindset as, how many hotels am I going to have, that's a slippery slope. If it's about finding opportunities and that can really add value to the brand, and then I think you're okay. The interesting piece of it is people. It's always people in our industry, and can we grow enough of our own people to feed that pipeline? But what's very heartwarming for me is that we're definitely a brand that talent wants to work for, because our values really do resonate with our employees and our potential employees. It's the employees today that are asking the employer, what's your green policy? What are you doing in sustainability? I don't know if I want to work for you. So we're very well placed there because it's such a big part of the DNA.
And your philosophy for developers is pretty interesting too, isn't it? I mean, from the developer point of view, this is a pretty interesting place to be just now.
It is an interesting place, and I think that's why during COVID we've not seen any slowdown in inquiries. Now, by the same nature, you have some developers that are not quite as interested in what we do. They see us as a sexy brand, and they say, let's have one of those. And when we start to talk about what we do and the things that are not negotiable, and we have some of those, around how we build and features that go in and touch points of the brand. Some, it's not for everybody either, But,
I thought things like the stability fund, for instance, is a hard thing for some people to get around.
It is. I mean, it's 0.5% of total revenue. Now, frankly, most hotels will spend money anyway. They just don't package it up in perhaps the way that we do, and certainly relative to community. But for example, in New York, sustainability, we're going to use some of that sustainability fund to partner up with the High Line, that is there at our doorstep. So it's not just about our thing; it's how can we contribute with that money to some of the great things that are going on in the jurisdictions where we function.
Fantastic. Well, we're coming to the end of our time together, but I've got one final question for you, and it's really taking a little bit back to marketing. What are your go-to brands when it comes to media in travel? What are you reading, and either digitally and print, just to keep abreast of everything that's going on?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I mean, I do I do read Travel and Leisure. I do, you know, online and print. Condé Nast, Afar. I mean, I really like what the guys at Afar are doing. They're a little bit different to some others, to some of the competitors. So that's really kind of from a, you know, a magazine, digital and print, where I land. And then I'm just kind of an avid article and blog reader, and you know, and I read your stuff. I read all your stuff. You know.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Well, let's leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. I know how busy you are at the moment, and you've got so much going on. 4 openings this year and 14 in the pipeline. It's fantastic. Great to see you, Neil.
Thank you. Will do. All the best. Thanks a lot. Take care.